Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're exploring a place, well, a destination many of you probably think you know quite well, but its property scene, it's going through some really significant, maybe even surprising shifts. Our mission, as always, is to sift through the details, connect those dots, and bring you the key insights. We're looking at the evolving second home market in Phuket. And yeah, just so we're all on the same page from the get-go, that's Phuket, P-O-O-K-E-T. Definitely not Phuket. Now, for this deep dive, we're leaning heavily on a really insightful article. It's titled Phuket's Evolving Second Home Market Trends. What makes this piece particularly valuable is where it comes from. It's direct from Ocean Worldwide. They're a luxury real estate agency, and they've actually been based right there in Phuket since, wow, 2004. So deep roots. We're drawing insights directly from their director, Sandra O'Neill. She's apparently been instrumental, helping literally thousands of families and investors navigate this market over the years. And just to underscore, Ocean Worldwide, they really specialize in luxury residential real estate, specifically Phuket and Koh Samui. So their perspective is, very focused and grounded.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is just how Phuket has shifted. It's gone from being, just a beautiful holiday spot to, well, now it's a major hub
Right.
for living long term, for serious investing. So today, we'll explore the unique market dynamics that make it so resilient. We'll look at who's actually driving the demand now and how their preferences, especially around location, are changing quite rapidly. It's really a prime example of an island adapting to and honestly shaping some of these global lifestyle trends.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The first thing the article really highlights is how differently Phuket's property market behaves compared to, say, the rest of Thailand. For listeners who follow global property, Phuket often seems like this anomaly. It stays stable even when other markets get really volatile. What exactly is its secret? What sets it apart from Bangkok maybe or other big tourist spots?
Yeah, it really does seem to operate on its own terms. The main difference, and this is probably its quote-unquote secret sauce, is just how dominant international buyers are. We're talking estimates of around 60, maybe even 70%
Uh-huh.
of all residential purchases in Phuket being made by foreign nationals. And that fundamentally shifts the dynamics. It moves it away from the purely domestic economic factors that tend to influence most other Thai markets. And here's a crucial point. Most of these foreign buyers, they're using cash. Thai banks, well, they generally don't offer mortgages to foreigners for property.
Right, no leverage, basically.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the market is largely insulated from things like local interest rate changes or even bigger domestic economic wobbles. Plus, a very high proportion of these buyers are high net worth individuals, people with significant liquid assets.
Yeah.
Often they're buying for lifestyle reasons, maybe a permanent vacation home or a base for remote work rather than just pure speculation.
Ah, okay, so less likely to panic sell.
Precisely. It adds this remarkable layer of stability. It means they're less likely to be forced sellers if the economy takes a downturn. And this structure, it's really what's allowed Phuket's property values to show pretty consistent long-term price growth. It's weathered global shocks like the 2008 financial crisis, even the 2020-2022 pandemic years, with, frankly, remarkable resilience. And this unique insulation, it's also being reinforced by some pretty significant infrastructure investments from the government. We're seeing major projects like the Khathu Patong Tunnel, big expansions at the Phuket International Airport.
These aren't just small tweaks then.
No, not at all. These are crucial long-term commitments that really boost the island's appeal and, its future growth prospects.
That sounds incredibly solid, almost unusually so in today's world. So this insulation from domestic stuff makes Phuket quite unique on the global property stage. Does that mean it's not just resilient, but maybe even, dare I say, anti-fragile? Like it actually gets stronger from disruptions that might hurt other markets. And for you listening, maybe you're a potential buyer, maybe just curious, what does this fundamental stability really imply about the long-term outlook for investing or even moving there?
Anti-fragile is a really interesting way to put it. And given its track record, you could definitely make a case for that. It implies a market that offers a certain level of, well, peace of mind that's pretty rare elsewhere, especially if you're looking at a long-term hold.
Right, and that stability must have been crucial because, think about it, after the global shutdowns, most markets really struggled for years. But Phuket, it seems, tells a very different story with this incredible rebound. The article paints a picture of a really dramatic post-pandemic recovery. What was the single biggest thing, the catalyst, that let Phuket not just recover, but actually surge past pre-pandemic levels?
Oh, the recovery was, yeah, definitely dramatic. 2023 was just, well, they call it a banner year for Phuket real estate.
Yep.
Sales figures hit levels they'd never seen before. Just to give you an idea, the Scale Resort Villa sales actually quadrupled compared to pre-pandemic averages.
Quadrupled. Wow.
Yeah, and condominium transactions also hit record highs. So it wasn't just a bounce back, it was a proper surge. The absolute #1 catalyst, no doubt, it was the Phuket Sandbox program, launched back in July 2021. This initiative was really innovative, a game changer, honestly. It let vaccinated international travelers come in without quarantine. That basically jump-started tourism and, crucially, the property market months ahead of pretty much anywhere else.
Ah, so it gave him a head start.
A huge head start. It really built confidence and brought buyers back to the island much, much earlier than anyone really expected. And what we also saw was this massive surge in deals that had been put on hold, deferred transactions. Lots of property deals were paused because of travel restrictions once the borders finally opened properly.
Pent-up demand.
Exactly. Immense pent-up demand unleashed, especially strong in that mid to high-end villa segment. And this flood of delayed purchases, it contributed significantly to those record sales figures we saw in 2023.
So it's not just recovery. It feels more like a recalibration, maybe. This explosion of activity, as the article puts it, really challenges that typical view of a post-crisis market. It suggests maybe a new kind of investor confidence, perhaps even a fundamental shift in what people want lifestyle-wise, globally. This wasn't just about getting back to normal. It was about blowing past the old benchmarks. Okay, so moving beyond the market's overall health, let's focus on the people driving it, the buyers. Who are the dominant groups really shaping Phuket's property market right now, and what are they looking for? What motivates them?
Well, right now, Russian buyers are, without a doubt, the dominant force. Starting around 2022, and particularly in 2023, they accounted for roughly 70%, 0% of all foreign residential property purchases.
70%, that's huge.
It's massive. And their preferences are quite specific. They often look for larger villas, typically 3 to 6 bedrooms, usually in that 20 to 60 million Thai baht price range, or condos, around 5 to 10 million THB. But here's a key thing for Russian families, and this is important. Proximity to international schools and amenities is often a top priority. Sometimes they'll even prioritize that over a classic sea view, which really tells you something about their intentions, right? They're thinking long-term settlement. Chinese investors, they're the second largest group. Their trends are a bit different, though. They generally favor condominiums, often for shorter stays, holidays, and specifically for rental investments, capitalizing on Phuket's still very strong tourism sector. We're also seeing some interesting shifts with emerging markets. Indian buyers are becoming more active, especially in the entry-level and mid-scale condo market. And there's definitely growing interest from Eastern Europe and Central Asia, places like Uzbekistan, for example, looking at both retail and off-plan properties.
Interesting diversification.
It is. And what's also really noticeable is this growing group of long-stay families and digital professionals, digital nomads, remote workers. They're increasingly seeing Phuket as a base. Why? Reliable high-speed internet, which is crucial, a growing number of co-working spaces, excellent international schools. And this group, they typically prefer larger properties. They need ample space, privacy, to accommodate that work-from-home lifestyle. They're basically turning their holiday spot into their everyday office.
That is fascinating, choosing schools over sea views, the rise of the digital professional setting up shop. Does this suggest a really fundamental shift in how these people view Phuket, moving beyond just a vacation spot to a genuine long-term home base?
Right.
And if that's the case, what does it mean for where people are choosing to buy? Are the old hotspots still king, or are new areas starting to pop up?
Exactly. It's a very clear sign of that shift, from just transient tourism to a more permanent, or at least semi-permanent, residency model. Now, the traditional West Coast, areas like Kamala, Surin, Bangtao, Lan, they definitely still hold huge appeal, especially for the ultra-luxury homes where privacy and exclusivity are paramount. But yes, we are seeing a very noticeable trend shift. There's this significant move towards inland development expansion. What's happening is developers are buying up larger plots of land further inland.
Okay, away from the immediate beachfront.
Right. This lets them create bigger, more comprehensive projects. Think more green space, better shared facilities, community vibes. And that's particularly appealing to those families and long-stay residents who need more room and, frankly, more amenities than a typical beachfront holiday condo might offer. This also really highlights another key factor now: proximity to amenities. Yes, the beach is always going to be alluring. It's Phuket. But buyers are now equally, sometimes more, focused on being close to those international schools, modern hospitals, good shopping centers, quality restaurants. It's about striking that balance, isn't it, between the natural beauty and the practical conveniences you need for daily life. In terms of specific luxury property areas, well, Kamala's Millionaire's Mile is still probably seen as the most prestigious address, but high-value locations are now really spread out. Think Bang Tao, Lian, Lame Sun, Cape Yamu, the headlands around Surin, Aopo. These are all drawing discerning buyers. And at the very, very top end, ultra-luxury villas in these prime spots can easily go north of 20 million US dollars. But the appeal of those inland areas for long-stay families is definitely growing. Why? Well, it offers that closeness to the schools. Often larger properties for, relatively speaking, more affordable prices per square meter and a quieter, perhaps more integrated lifestyle away from the main tourist buzz. You're seeing new villa projects like Trivananda, which is near UWC International School in Thanyapura Health Resort. They're specifically designed with wellness and lifestyle amenities baked in, catering directly to this evolving demographic.
Right, okay. So beyond location and demographics, there's another trend you mentioned that's really taking off, branded residences. What exactly are these, and why are they becoming such a big deal in Phuket? The article says they're close to 20% of the market now.
Yeah, around that mark. Branded residences are basically properties linked with well-known hotel brands. Think luxury hotel chains, lending their names, standards, and often services to residential properties. And they've really found a sweet spot in Phuket. Their appeal, it largely boils down to what people call turnkey ownership.
Turnkey, meaning hassle-free.
It's exactly. All the ongoing maintenance, the upkeep, even optional rental management, if you wanted, it's typically handled for you by the brand. Plus, owners often get privileged access to the adjoining hotel's full suite of amenities. Concierge, restaurants, pools, spas. It just makes owning a property in Phuket, especially if you're an international buyer not there year-round, incredibly straightforward and hassle-free. And beyond just the convenience, there's often a really strong focus on integrating wellness and lifestyle elements. Many of these developments boast on-site spas, high-end fitness centers, healthy dining options. They're catering to buyers looking for a property that actively supports a holistic, healthy lifestyle. You see some fantastic examples out there, like the standard residences, Trivananda again, various banyan tree branded villas.
That turnkey appeal definitely makes sense. But do these branded residences usually come with a price premium? And stepping back a bit, if someone is considering ownership in Phuket, what are the really crucial legal or structural things they need to understand, especially with these new regulations you hinted at coming into play?
Yes, they typically do come with a premium. You're paying for the brand name, the guaranteed level of service, the quality of maintenance, the amenities access. Whether that premium translates into better long-term capital appreciation
Yeah.
well, it's a complex question. Often it's more about the immediate lifestyle benefits and that peace of mind. Now, regarding ownership structures, this is absolutely critical for any foreign buyer to understand. The most common route by far is leasehold. Typically, these are 30-year leases, so you're buying the right to use the property for that period, not necessarily own the land underneath it in perpetuity.
Okay, 30 years. What happens then?
Well, developers often talk about renewals, maybe 2 further 30-year terms. But, and this is a big but, it is absolutely crucial to scrutinize the security of those renewals in the contract and get independent legal advice.
Always. Why is that so critical?
Because without proper structuring in the initial agreement, that renewal isn't always guaranteed or automatic. You could face significant hurdles, new costs, or in a worst-case scenario, potentially lose control of the property after that first 30 years. Then you have the Thai company ownership regulations. Historically, setting up a Thai company was a common way for foreigners to effectively hold land, which they can't do directly. The underlying law hasn't fundamentally changed, but in 2024, the government started enforcing the existing rules much more strictly.
Closing loopholes.
Pretty much. It means the company now genuinely needs to be a real functioning business. It has to demonstrate legitimate operations, a real commercial purpose, beyond just passively holding land for a foreigner. This adds a significant layer of complexity and ongoing operational requirements. Simply setting up an empty shell company just for ownership, that's no longer considered a viable or, frankly, legal strategy. Now, for those really wanting freehold, there are some options, though less common for villas. You might find something called condominium licensed villas. It's a bit like owning an apartment unit outright, but it's structured as a villa within a larger development that has a condo license. This allows foreigners to hold direct freehold title to the villa unit, or, more commonly for apartments, freehold condominiums. Foreigners can legally own up to 49% of the total saleable area in a registered condominium project directly in their own name. But for any leasehold, company, freehold, condo, thorough due diligence, and expert, independent legal advice are absolutely non-negotiable. It's also worth mentioning there are ongoing discussions in Thailand about potentially extending lease terms beyond 30 years and maybe increasing that 49% foreign ownership quota for condos. If those happen, they could significantly change the landscape again.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to take in and really excellent advice for anyone looking at this market. So, bringing us right up to the present, what's the latest data telling us? What did the first quarter of 2024 look like? Is that boom still rolling, or are we seeing things start to rebalance?
Well, the boom is definitely still rolling, but maybe with some interesting shifts in the detail. Q1 2024 saw really robust activity. There were around 25 new development launches, bringing over 4,000 new units onto the market, the total value, estimated around 54 billion Thai baht. Most of these new launches, interestingly, were holiday condos, primarily located up in the Thailand district. But what's really fascinating looking at January to April 2024 is the huge surge in resale activity. Resales actually accounted for a massive 68% of all property transactions during that period. And even higher for single-family homes, 70% of those sales were resales.
So, the secondary market is really buzzing.
It's absolutely buzzing. Now, while overall condo sales remain strong, the average price for condos dipped slightly. This is likely due to more activity happening at the lower end of the resale market, pulling the average down a bit. And this surge in available resales has created a really interesting dynamic: increased developer competition with that resale supply. Think about it. The total project inventory across the island is now over 72,000 units. And there are still around 10,000 of those officially available for sale from developers. So developers launching new projects are definitely feeling some pressure on their pricing. They have to compete effectively with all these attractive existing resale options that buyers now have. But overall, yes, 2024 is absolutely shaping up to be a record sales year, potentially the best in over a decade. What's fueling it? Well, partly it's just that increased supply hitting the market. Condo supply jumped 148% year on year. Villa supply also expanded significantly, up 51%. And interestingly, condominium sales are significantly outpacing villas right now. We saw about 6,156 condos sold versus just 573 villas in the period studied.
What are the big difference there?
It likely comes down to the more accessible price points for condos, making them reachable for a broader range of buyers. Plus, developers often offer attractive incentives and payment plans for condos. And of course, the strong rental demand, particularly from those Chinese and Indian buyer groups looking for investment properties. And finally, just touching on location again for Q1 2024 sales, they weren't spread evenly. There's a clear concentration in specific key zones. For condos, Bang Tao was just dominant. It took a massive 68% of all condo sales, followed by Lan, Patong, Nanyang, and Rahway. For villas, Charingtali led the pack at 27%, along with areas like Phu Champa and Bang Tao again. So that highlights both the continued strong appeal of the West Coast, but also that growing interest in those slightly more inland areas near amenities.
Well, this deep dive has certainly shown us just how incredibly dynamic and maybe unexpectedly resilient Phuket's second home market really is. It's clearly shifted, hasn't it? From maybe just a simple, beautiful holiday spot into this much more sophisticated hub for living, for working remotely, for serious investment, driven by this really diverse and growing range of international buyers and underpinned by some pretty solid future-focused infrastructure. It really does feel like a market built on a different kind of stability.
It really does. And if we connect all these dots, stepping back to look at the bigger picture, it definitely raises a pretty significant question, doesn't it? As Phuket continues down this path, this evolution from being primarily tourism-centric to becoming a more permanent home base for global citizens, digital professionals, families, how will this profound demographic and economic shift ultimately influence its long-term culture, its community fabric, and its core identity as an island?
That is a powerful thought to leave our listeners with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this has given you a valuable shortcut to being well-informed on Phuket's truly fascinating and clearly rapidly evolving property landscape.